Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today's Thursday, January 10th, 2019. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's college basketball, NBA, and NHL games, look ahead to tonight's slate in each of those three sports, discuss the Jets' hiring of Adam Gase to be their new head coach. Grandal finally signs with the team. MLB over-under game, and I'll close it out with the best bet of the night. So, to college hoops we go. A lot of notable results. Seton Hall defeats Butler 76-75 as Seton Hall improves to 12-4. Butler drops to 10-6. Georgia defeats Vanderbilt 82-63. Georgia's 9-5. Vandy's 9-5. Xavier defeats Georgetown 81-75. Xavier 10-7, Georgetown 11-5. Rutgers defeats number 16 Ohio State 64-61. Rutgers 8-6. Ohio State 12-3. Number 9 Virginia Tech defeats Georgia Tech 52-49. Virginia Tech 14-1. Georgia Tech 9-6. Ole Miss upsets number 11 Auburn 82-67. Ole Miss is 12-2. Auburn's 11-3. Number 21 Marquette defeats Creighton 106-104 in overtime. Marquette 13-3, Creighton 10-6. Kansas State comes back and defeats West Virginia 71-69. Kansas State goes to 11-4. West Virginia drops to 8-7. Temple defeats number 17 Houston 73-69. Good win for Temple. They're 12-3 and they hand Houston their first loss as they drop to 15-1. South Florida defeats Tulane 66-48. USF is 12-3 and Tulane's 4-11. Davidson defeats George Mason, 61-56. Davidson 11-4, George Mason 8-8. Dayton defeats George Washington, 72-66. Dayton 10-5, George Washington 5-10. Rhode Island defeats Richmond, 78-67. Rhode Island 8-6, Richmond 6-9. St. Bonaventure defeats St. Joe's, 73-47. St. Bonnie 5-10. St. Joe's 7-8. VCU defeats LaSalle, 69-63. VCU 11-4, LaSalle 3-11. Cornell defeats Towson 86-74. Cornell 8-8. Towson 5-12. Stony Brook defeats Binghamton 59-46. Stony Brook 14-3. Binghamton 5-12. Hartford defeats UMBC 66-64 in overtime. Hartford 8-8. UMBC 9-8. Vermont defeats Maine 73-49. Vermont 12-4. Maine 2-15. New Hampshire defeats UMass Lowell 68-64. New Hampshire 3-12. UMass Lowell 8-9. Jacksonville defeats Kennesaw State 90-70. Jacksonville is 8-9. Kennesaw is 3-14. Liberty defeats Stetson 71-53. Liberty 13-4. Stetson 4-12. American knocks off Navy 71-63. American 8-6. Navy 5-9. Army defeats Boston University 86-82. Army 7-9. BU 8-8. Bucknell defeats Colgate 84-81. Bucknell 8-7. Colgate 9-7. Lafayette defeats Loyola Maryland 85-70. Lafayette 4-10. Loyola Maryland 4-12. Lehigh defeats Holy Cross 99-94 in overtime. Lehigh 10-4, Holy Cross 10-6. Lipscomb defeats North Florida 81-66. Lipscomb 11-4, North Florida 7-10. Texas A&M Corpus Christi defeats Northwestern State 62-61. Corpus Christi 7-9, Northwestern State 6-10. Abilene Christian defeats McNeese 73-72. Abilene Christian 13-3, McNeese 5-11. Syracuse defeats Clemson 61-53. Syracuse 11-4, Clemson 10-5. Pitt upsets Louisville 86-89. Pitt 11-4. Louisville is 10-5. Duquesne defeats Fordham 66-61. Duquesne 10-5. Fordham 9-6. Nichols defeats Stephen F. Austin 78-73. Nichols 9-7. Stephen F. Austin 8-6. Sam Houston State defeats Central Arkansas 78-69. Sam Houston State 7-8. Central Arkansas 6-10. New Orleans defeats Lamar 78-71 in overtime. New Orleans 7-7. Lamar 8-8. Florida defeats Arkansas 57-51. Florida 9-5, Arkansas 10-4. Iowa defeats Northwestern 73-63. Iowa 13-3, Northwestern 10-6. Number 4, Virginia defeats Boston College 83-56. Virginia 14-0, BC 9-5. Number 13, Florida State defeats Miami 68-62. Florida State 13-2, Miami 8-7. Number 7, Kansas defeats number 25, TCU 77-68. Kansas 13-2, TCU 12-2. St. Louis defeats UMass 65-62. St. Louis 11-4, UMass 7-8. Arizona State defeats Cal 80-66. Arizona State 11-4, Cal 5-10. Fresno State defeats Utah State 78-77. Fresno 12-3, Utah State 11-5. UC Santa Barbara defeats Cal Poly 65-56. Santa Barbara 12-3, Cal Poly 4-10. CSU Northridge defeats UC Riverside 84-83. Northridge 7-10, Riverside 6-11. Arizona defeats Stanford 75-70. Arizona 12-4, Stanford 7-8. Number 10, Nevada defeats San Jose State 92-53. Nevada 15-1, San Jose State 3-11. And last but not least, Hawaii defeats Cal State Fullerton 79-68. Hawaii 10-5, Fullerton 4-11. Tonight's games are a lot of mid-majors and a couple Pac-12 and Big Tens. Obviously, pick the Big Tens and Pac-12s. Anything else involving a ranked team. Hofstra and St. Mary's at 7 o'clock, along with Drexel, Charleston, Delaware, UNC Wilmington, Northeastern Alon. SMU UConn's an AAC game, so I'll pick AAC as well. Realistically, I'd pick UConn here, but I think SMU's the better team, so give me SMU to pull off a short upset as UConn's a 2.5-point favorite. SMU wins outright. Let's say by a score of 76-72 or something like that. Cincinnati at Tulsa at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Cincinnati's an egregious 7-point favorite. I think Tulsa has a great opportunity to pull off the outright upset, and I think they're going to do so. Give me Tulsa outright against Cincinnati on ESPN2 tonight. Monmouth and Quinnipiac, St. Peter's and Fairfield, Cal Baptist and UMKC, Old Dominion and FAU. Central Connecticut State and Fairleigh Dickinson, St. Francis, Pennsylvania at LIU Brooklyn, Sacred Heart at Wagner, Texas State at Coastal Carolina, Texas Arlington at Appalachian State, UL Monroe at Georgia Southern, Louisiana at Georgia State, Winthrop at Campbell, Charleston Southern at Hampton, Presbyterian at High Point, UNC Asheville at Longwood, Radford at South Carolina Upstate, Bryant at Mount St. Mary's, Cleveland State at IUPUI, Green Bay at Detroit Mercy, Furman at VMI, Wofford at Greensboro, East Tennessee State at the Citadel, Western Carolina at Mercer, Oral Roberts at Purdue Fort Wayne, Milwaukee at Oakland, Charlotte at FIU, 7:30 Troy at Little Rock, UAB at Louisiana Tech, Morehead State at Belmont, 8 o'clock Fox Sports 1, number 2 Michigan is at Illinois. Trap game for the Wolverines for sure, but this Wolverines team is very good, and the Fighting Illini are not. Give me Michigan to win and cover 9.5. I think they win that by double digits. They'll break it open in the second half. Cal State Bakersfield at Texas Rio Grande. South Alabama at Arkansas State. Middle Tennessee at Southern Miss. Denver at South Dakota State. Omaha at North Dakota. Western Illinois at North Dakota State. Youngstown State at UIC. Rice at UTSA. 8:15 Eastern Illinois at Jacksonville State. 8:30 Eastern Kentucky at Tennessee State. Murray State at Tennessee Martin, SIU Edwardsville at Tennessee Tech, 8:45 Austin Peay at Southeast Missouri State, 9 o'clock ESPN2, Penn State at Nebraska. Nebraska needs this win in the worst way. I think they win, and I think they cover to 10 because Penn State is not a very good team. Portland at BYU, East Carolina at Memphis, 9 o'clock on ESPNU. I think Memphis wins, but East Carolina covers the number. The case against East Carolina covering the numbers that this is a letdown spot for them. Sure, I do think it is a letdown spot, but I think 15 is too big of a number for Memphis to be giving against anybody. Except maybe for some teams in the SWAC or something. Grand Canyon at New Mexico State, Washington State at Colorado on the Pac-12 Network. I think Colorado wins this game, but Washington State covers the 10.5. I just don't think Colorado is that great, and I think the Cougars are a team that can hang around. 9 o'clock on the mothership, ESPN, UCLA at Oregon. Oregon's favored by 3.5. Oregon doesn't have Bull for the year. I think UCLA pulls off the outright upset on the road. They're undefeated since Steve Alford been fired. It's going to be Dave Pasch and Bill Walton on the call. I do think UCLA wins outright as a 3.5-point underdog. Robert Morris at San Francisco, Brooklyn on the CBS Sports Network. St. Francis, Brooklyn probably wins that one. North Texas at UTEP, 9:05, Montana at Eastern Washington, 10 o'clock, Montana State at Idaho. Washington and Utah on Fox Sports 1 at 10 o'clock. I think Washington wins that game and covers. UC Davis at UC Irvine, Pacific at number 5, Gonzaga on ESPN2. I think Gonzaga wins, but Pacific covers the 25.5. I just think that's too many points for a somewhat decent opponent in conference play. Pepperdine at Santa Clara, and then 11 o'clock on ESPNU, USC at Oregon State. USC's the better team. I think they win this game outright, although Oregon State is a 5-point favorite. NBA. Some interesting results from yesterday. The Celtics defeat the Pacers 135-108 as Boston improves to 25-15. Indiana drops to 27-14. Marcus Morris, 22 points and 8 boards. Jason Tatum had 20. Kyrie Irving only had 12. Gordon Hayward off the bench had 14. He had a good game, 2 3-pointers, shot 5 for 7 from the field in 22 minutes. Jaylen Brown had 22 points and 7 boards off the bench. Daniel Theis and Terry Rozier each had 12 off the bench. Meanwhile, for Indiana, Domantas Sabonis had 20. Victor Oladipo had 17. Thaddeus Young had 10. Off the bench, Kyle O'Quinn had 11. And Tyreek Evans had 15. Tyreek Evans, his name I haven't really called much this year. I think he was hurt. The Wizards defeat the 76ers 123-106. Let down for Sixers, and a trap game obviously too, as Washington goes to 17-25. Philly drops to 27-15. Bradley Beal, 34 points. Trevor Ariza had 17. Off the bench, Otto Porter Jr. had 23, and Sam Dekker had 11. Joel Embiid had 35 points and 14 boards. Jimmy Butler had 23 with 9 boards. Ben Simmons had 15 points, 10 boards, and 8 assists. And Furkan Korkmaz had 16. Bench didn't do anything. The Nets defeat the Hawks 116-100 as Brooklyn improves to 21-22. Atlanta drops to 12-29. D'Angelo Russell, 23 points. Jared Allen and Rodions Carusis each had 11. Joe Harris had 16. Off the bench, DeMarre Carroll had 17. Shabazz Napier had 11. And Spencer Dinwiddie had 16. John Collins had 30. Kevin Huerter had 14. Trae Young had 17. Off the bench, Alex Len had 10. And Jeremy Lin had 16. The Bucks defeat the Rockets 116-109. Impressive win for Mike Budenholzer's team as they go to 29-11. Houston drops to 23-17. Giannis Antetokounmpo had 27 points, 21 boards, and 5 assists. Chris Middleton had 15. Eric Bledsoe had 10. Malcolm Brogdon had 24. Off the bench, Ersan Ilyasova had 10. Sterling Brown had 13. James Harden continues to play great. 42 points, 11 boards, 6 assists. Clint Capella had 18 with 13 boards. Austin Rivers had 13. And off the bench, Gerald Green had 16. The Grizzlies defeat the Spurs 96-86. Good win for Memphis as they go to 19-22. San Antonio drops to 24-18. Marc Gasol had 26 points and 14 boards. Jaren Jackson Jr. had 12. Mike Conley had 15. Jermichael Green had 12. Sheldon Mack had 10. And obviously those two guys I just listed were off the bench. LaMarcus Aldridge had 13. Bryn Forbes had 14. Derek White had 12. Marco Bellinelli off the bench had 14. Patty Mills off the bench had 13. The Pelicans defeat the Cavaliers 140-124. New Orleans is 20-22. Cleveland drops to 8-34. Anthony Davis, sensational. 38 points, 13 boards, and 7 assists. Julius Randle has 17 and 8 boards. Drew Holiday had 18 with 7 boards and 5 assists. Off the bench, Nikola Mirotic had 17. Fred Jackson had 19. C.D. Osman had 10. Alec Burks had 17. Colin Sexton had 13. Off the bench, Ante Zizic had 10. Matthew Dellavedova had 17. Jordan Clarkson had 21. And Cameron Payne had 16. The Mavericks defeat the Suns 104-94. Dallas is 19-22. Phoenix drops to 10-33. Luka Doncic had 30. Wes Matthews had 14. DeAndre Jordan had 11. Harrison Barnes had 17. And Max Kleber had 13. Bench didn't do anything. TJ Warren had 20. Josh Jackson had 17. Rashawn Holmes off the bench had 16. Kelly Oubre off the bench had 14. And Elliot Kobo had 10 off the bench. The Jazz defeat the Magic 106-93 as Utah improves to 21-21. Orlando drops to 17-24. Donovan Mitchell 33 points and 7 assists. Raul Neto had 10. Rudy Gobert had 12. Joe Ingles had 16. Off the bench, Kyle Korver had 11. Nikola Vucevic had 20. DJ Augustine had 23. Aaron Gordon had 18. Off the bench, Terrence Ross had 13. The Trailblazers defeat the Bulls 124-112. Portland 25-17. Chicago 10-31. CJ McCollum 24 points. Dame Lillard had 16 with 10 assists. Yusuf Nurkic had 18. Zach Collins had 16. Seth Curry off the bench had 17. Mo Harkless didn't play due to a left knee injury. Lauri Markkanen had 10. Wendell Carter Jr. had 22. Chris Dunn had 15. Zach LaVine had 18. Off the bench, Bobby Portis had 15, and Alex Belankley had 12. The Lakers defeat the Pistons 113-100. Lakers much-needed win 23-19 on the year. Detroit 17-22. Kyle Kuzma, the game of his life. 41 points with 5 3-pointers. 16 of 24 shooting. And he attempted 10 3-pointers. Brandon Ingram and JaVale McGee each had 10. Off the bench, Michael Beasley had 19. Avika Zubac had 11. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had 15 against his former team. Tyson Chandler didn't play for some weird reason. LeBron James is still hurt. Blake Griffin had 16 in his Staples Center return. He'll have his quote-unquote Clippers return coming up. Reggie Jackson had 15. Reggie Bullock had 13. Off the bench, Langston Galloway had 15, all 3-pointers. And Luke Kennard had 12. Tonight's slate, 7 o'clock TNT, the Celtics at the Heat. I believe this is Kevin Harlan and Reggie Miller on the call here. Or it might actually be Kevin Harlan and Kevin McHale. It's a tempting choice to take Miami yet again in the nationally televised game as a home underdog, but I like the way how the Boston Celtics have been playing of late, so give me Boston the win and cover the 2.5. The Clippers are at the Nuggets, the Thunder are at the Spurs, 9:30 TNT, Marv Albert, Chris Webber on the call. San Antonio's on the second of a back-to-back, and I just don't see Oklahoma City losing like 3 games straight, so give me OKC to win and cover the 1.5. They had the 2 best players on the court in Russell Westbrook and Paul George. And then you have the Pistons at the Kings as well. NHL, only 3 games last night on the slate. The Preds defeat the Blackhawks 4-3 in overtime. Nashville 27-15-3. Chicago 16-22-8. Number 1 star of the game with 2 goals, including the overtime winner, Philip Forsberg. Number 2 star of the game with a goal, Victor Friedson. And number 3 star of the game with 2 assists, Patrick Kane. The Flames defeat the Avalanche 5-3 as Calgary goes to 28-13-4. Colorado drops to 20-16-8. Number 1 star of the game with 32 saves on 35 shots, David Rittich. Number 2 star of the game with 3 assists, Mark Giordano. Number 3 star of the game with a goal, Nathan McKinnon. The Senators defeat the Ducks 2-1 in overtime. Ottawa goes to 16-23-5. Anaheim, bad loss, drops to 19-17-8. Number 1 star of the game with the overtime goal, Colin White. Number 2 star of the game with 28 saves on 30 shots, John Gibson. Number 3 star of the game with the goal, Jacob Silfverberg. Tonight's slate is pretty big. At 7 o'clock, you have the Islanders at the Rangers, the Capitals at the Bruins, the Maple Leafs at the Devils, the Stars at the Flyers, the Predators at the Blue Jackets, 7:30 the Hurricanes at the Lightning, 8 o'clock the Canadiens at the Blues, NBCSN, the Jets at the Wild. Big spot here for both these teams. I just think the Jets are the better team, led by Patrick Laine, Kyle Connor, and Mark Sheffley. So give me Winnipeg there on the road in a close one. Wouldn't be surprised at all if it went to overtime. Wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota won either. 9 o'clock, the Panthers at the Oilers. 10 o'clock, the Coyotes at the Canucks. 10 o'clock as well, the Sharks at the Golden Knights. And 10:30, the Senators are at the Kings. Adam Gase was hired as the Jets head coach last night. I seen a lot of negative reaction on social media and by people in the media. And this, to me, is actually not a bad hire. I think that Adam Gase got a raw deal in Miami because that franchise is a mess, and they tend to fire coaches every 3 years. I feel like a lot of people blamed him for the non-development of Ryan Tannehill, but the reality is that Ryan Tannehill just is not a franchise quarterback, and Miami should have known that a few years ago. So, Gase gets to develop a younger quarterback in Sam Darnold. The Jets have a lot of cap space, so they can go out and improve their team. They have the number 3 pick in the draft. So it's not a bad choice, in my opinion, by the New York Jets. I went over the MLB over-unders yesterday. Now I'm actually going to play the game. I'm going to go from highest to lowest and make my case for each team to go over-under. And no, these are not official picks at all, because Bryce Harper hasn't signed yet. Manny Machado hasn't signed yet. Dallas Keuchel hasn't signed yet. There are trades to be made. Injuries happen in spring training every year, so these are not official picks. The Houston Astros are at 97.5. I'm going to take the under, but a slim one. Lance McCullers Jr. is out with Tommy John surgery. Dallas Keuchel's not coming back. Charlie Morton signed with the Rays. Josh James showed some flashes last year, but are we sure he's good? Their bullpen's solid, and their offense is the strength of their team, led by Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, George Springer, and Carlos Correa. I'm going to say under here, but a very slim one. I would say they would win 97 games. But I get why that over-under is that high. It's because they don't think the AL West is that good. The New York Yankees are at 96.5. I am taking the over. I think a lot of things went wrong for the Yankees last year, and they still won 100 games. So, I do not think they're going to win 4 less games. If anything, they'll probably win more games than they did a year ago. Aaron Judge is going to be healthy the whole year. Giancarlo Stanton, year 2 in the Bronx should be better than year 1, although I think he had a solid year 1 in the Bronx. Luis Severino won't have a bad half like he did in the second half last year. They re-signed Zach Britton. Their rotation as a whole is better with bringing back Jay Happ, and he'll be in their rotation for a full season. James Paxton's an upgrade in that rotation. And the CC Sabathia thing is looming over them, but he's been solid the past couple years after he reinvented himself. And Masahiro Tanaka, yeah, he has the problem in his elbow, but that elbow hasn't snapped yet, and heck, maybe it won't snap ever. So, give me over 96.5 for the Yankees. And I think there's a chance that the Yankees have the most wins in the American League this season. The Boston Red Sox are at 95.5. This is a good one. I'm going to actually make a case for the under, but a slim one just like Houston. The case for the under is Nathan Eovaldi. I don't think he'll have the same type of year as he did a year ago. Rick Porcello and David Price had great years last year, but I'm not sure if they can replicate those. Chris Sale has been on and off the DL a lot over the past year or so. Mookie Betts in a contract year is something to keep an eye on, and so is Xander Bogaerts, I believe. So both of those guys will be having strong seasons. Andrew Benintendi, somebody I think will improve. So there are cases for the over, but my main reason for the under is 3 words, World Series hangover. That always happens to a team after they win the World Series. But I think it's a slim under. If anything, I'd say 95, and plus Craig Kimbrell hasn't been re-signed yet. Maybe if they bring back Craig Kimbrell, maybe I would argue over. But Kimbrell himself's a pitcher in decline. But the other thing is with Boston is that they have no reliable arms in that bullpen whatsoever. That is my strong argument for their under. The Los Angeles Dodgers are at 95 on the money. I'm taking the over. This is, to me, by far the best roster in the National League and my favorite to win the 2019 World Series right now. Walker Buehler's, to me, a pitcher that's going to have a big breakout year next year. Clayton Kershaw's a pitcher in decline, but he doesn't have to be the ace now that Buehler's there. They have a trade to make potentially to upgrade their rotation. And even if they don't make a trade, their rotation is still strong, led by Buehler and Kershaw. Hazen Ryu's still around. Rich Hill's still there. Alex Wood was traded off to Cincinnati, but they still have depth in that rotation. Maybe Kenta Maeda will be back in the rotation. He's solid. Their offense, whether they sign Bryce Harper or not, will be good, even without Matt Kemp and Yasiel Puig. I think Cody Bellinger will have a better year than last year. Corey Seager comes back. He's a great player. Justin Turner's a hits machine. Now the Dodgers just need him to stay healthy the whole year if they want to go to 100 wins, which I think they're absolutely capable of doing. Their bullpen's improved with the signing of Joe Kelly to go in the 8th inning behind Kenley Jansen. Although Jansen's a bit of a concern for me because he's coming off the heart surgery, but I think he'll be fine. The Cleveland Indians are at 91.5. I'm going to take the over for this reason. Corey Kluber and Trevor Bauer are still on this roster. Those are great pitchers. This rotation is great. Shane Bieber's going to make a second-year leap. Tristan McKenzie, the young pitching prospect, will probably slide into their rotation finally. And Carlos Carrasco's still there. He signed an extension. Their rotation's very deep. I think the Edwin Encarnacion, Jake Bauer swap will prove to be a good one. Carlos Santana's back on the Indians. He'll help them. Bauer's, to me, is somebody that I think can make a jump. Although he was great last year on the Rays, I think the Rays are going to regret trading Jake Bauer. That's one of my early season predictions, which is another big reason why I have the Indians over 91.5. And plus, Francisco Lindor's fantastic. Jose Ramirez has had 2 great years in a row. The Chicago Cubs are at 89. I think this is a little low. I'm going to take the over. This team should easily win 90+. I think too many people are down on them because of how their season ended last year, and Joe Maddon's a lame duck manager. Like, there's cases against the Cubs. But Chris Bryant's going to be healthy the whole year. Anthony Rizzo is going to be healthy the whole year. Javier Baez is coming off a career year. Will he replicate that? Maybe people are skeptical about that, but I'm not. I'm high on Javier Baez. Kyle Schwarber had a solid year last year. I think he could be better, too. Wilson Contreras had a bad year last year. I think he can rebound. So there are a lot of guys that I think have had subpar years last year that can rebound this year, which makes the Cubs an enticing overpick at 89. The St. Louis Cardinals are at 88.5. This is a hard one. I'm going to say over on them, but a slim over. Paul Goldschmidt upgrades their offense. He's in a contract year. He'll be having a great year. I think Marcell Ozuna is going to have a great year. He's in a contract year too. They have a lot of guys on that team. Their rotation's pretty good. Their bullpen's improved with the signing of Andrew Miller, so give me the over for the Cardinals. The Washington Nationals are at 88.5. A very hard call here, but I'm going to take the under because I'm unsure whether Bryce Harper's coming back or not. I'm going to assume no. I'm not sold on Patrick Corbin after he gets paid. He could be this year's version of Yu Darvish. That's an absolute dumpster fire. So that makes me a little nervous. Steven Strasburg's never healthy. Max Scherzer's still the best pitcher perhaps in the sport. So that they have going for them. Anthony Rendon's in a contract year. He'll have a good year. Obviously, Juan Soto year 2. Victor Robles is going to be a National League Rookie of the Year candidate. Adam Eaton is someone that's very injury prone, and he can't be relied on a whole season. So I'm going to say under 88.5, but if they bring back Harper, then I might change my mind. If the Tampa Bay Rays are at 85.5, I'm going to say over. Even though I do not like that they got rid of Jake Bauers, I'm still going to say over. They have the reigning Cy Young winner in Blake Snell. They improved their rotation by bringing in Charlie Morton. I think they're going to do less of the opener and more of an actual rotation. I think they're going to try out Jalen Beeks, who they got in the Nathan Eovaldi deal from Boston, and Tyler Glasnow, who they got in the Chris Archer deal from the Pirates, and make a foursome of a rotation like that and use the fifth spot as the opener spot unless they bring somebody in to be their fifth starter. Their bullpen isn't that terrible, as we've seen, because the openers are relievers and those guys aren't that bad. And also, they always have guys that tend to have career years every year. They're in the conversation for JT Realmuto. That would be a big upgrade on their team. So give me over 85.5 for the Tampa Bay Rays. And plus, Kevin Cash is one of the better managers in the game. The Atlanta Braves are at 84. To me, that's an over. This team won its division last year, and I don't see why it can't win its division again. They just have to improve their rotation a little bit, or guys have to have breakout years. They have a lot of prospects they can trot out in their rotation, and they can be impact guys. Also, Ronald Acuna in year 2, I think he'll be great. Freddie Freeman's one of the best players in the game. Maybe they bring back Nick Markakis. He would help them. Josh Donaldson and Brian McCann were brought in as veteran presences in that lineup, and I like it. So give me over 84 for the Braves. And I think that they're a sneaky candidate to sign Dallas Keuchel. The Minnesota Twins are at 84. This is an under. I don't get why this number's too high. Byron Buxton and Miguel Sano cannot be relied on a whole season to be franchise-type players, as we have seen the last couple years. As Sano was sent down to single A, and Buxton pretty much missed the whole year. Buxton only had 2 good flashes, which was at the end of the 2017 season, at the end of the 2016 season. But I don't think Buxton's a franchise player. I don't think Sano's a franchise player. The rotation is still not great, although it's improved with a couple free agent signings. Nelson Cruz is there. He'll help them. But I'm still going to say under. This feels like maybe a third-place team in the division, depending on what the White Sox could potentially do. The Milwaukee Brewers are 83.5. This is my biggest disagreement with Vegas. I really think the Brewers are way better than this number. I'm going to say well over. They have the reigning NL MVP on their team in Christian Yelich. They have a great bullpen. Jesus Aguilar had a career year last year, but I don't know if he can replicate that. They still need to fix their rotation. Maybe they're a candidate to trade for Madison Bumgarner in the summertime. Maybe they're a dark horse to sign Dallas Keuchel. I do think they'll upgrade their rotation. I'm taking over 83.5 for the Milwaukee Brewers. And Craig Counsell is an excellent manager, too. I'm not betting against Craig Counsell. The Los Angeles Angels are at 83.5. I'm going to say under. So Shohei Ohtani's out all of next year. And yes, Mike Trout's going to be great as he is each and every year, but no Ohtani. Their rotation's meh. They could have upgraded it. They could have went out and gotten J. Happ or Dallas Keuchel or one of these free agent signers, pitchers, but they didn't. So I'm going to say under. The New York Mets are at 83.5. I'm going to say over, but I don't feel good about it. I think Robinson Cano makes their offense better. If Todd Frazier's healthy the whole year, he will have a good season. They also have a new catcher in Wilson Ramos. Upgraded that position. He'll have a good year. Peter Alonso maybe will be up this season. He'll help them. I think Keon Broxton's a sneaky good addition for the Mets. Michael Conforto could have a bounce-back year. And we can't forget that they have the reigning NL Cy Young winner on their team. And they have another Cy Young candidate on their team in Noah Syndergaard. Zach Wheeler had a good year last year. So, I'm going to say over 83.5 for the New York Mets. The Oakland Athletics are at 83. This is a tough one. I'm going to say over with an asterisk. Chris Davis is one of the better players in the game that nobody talks about. Matt Olson's a good player. Matt Chapman's one of the best defensive players perhaps in the whole sport. Their rotation's not great. They need to upgrade that. Their bullpen's very good still, even though they lost a couple of their key guys in free agency. Bob Melvin tends to get a lot out of his players. I'm going to say a slim over for the Oakland Athletics. Philadelphia Phillies 83. I'm going to say over. I think they end up signing either Bryce Harper or Manny Machado, or maybe even A.J. Pollock, or they make a trade or sign Dallas Keuchel to improve their rotation. I think they should sign Dallas Keuchel, so they have a good big three with Keuchel, Arrieta, and Nola. So I'm going to say slim over for the Phillies. The Colorado Rockies are at 82. I'm going to say over for them. That number's too low. Nolan Arenado's in a contract year. Yeah, they're going to lose DJ LeMahieu. They add Daniel Murphy. He'll help them offensively. Charlie Blackmon is on their team still. Their rotation is sneaky good. Kyle Freeland and Herman. Both of those guys had good years last year. To me, the key to this team is John Gray, the young pitcher who really hasn't panned out. If he breaks out or bounces back to the guy that started or got the start in the wild card game a few years ago, then this team can win the division, I think. But to me, they're a sneaky good team, and don't forget that this team made the division round last year. Pittsburgh Pirates are at 78.5. I'm going to say under. I think that's too high. I think Chris Archer isn't an ace, and Pittsburgh overvalued him when they traded for him. Jameson Taillon is the ace of the Pirates staff. I just don't think they're going to be a good offensive team because I think there's a chance that Francisco Cervelli's traded before the season. Gregory Polanco, is he a franchise player? Josh Bell, is he an all-star type of player? To me, there's too many questions with the Pirates. San Diego Padres are at 77.5. I'm going to say under. I think this team's getting a little too much buzz. Yes, there's an argument to be made that they're going to be the Phillies of this upcoming season, where they overachieve and then fall apart late. But the Padres haven't made the improvements that made me believe that yet. Arizona's at 77. I'm going to say under. This team's going to continue to trade pieces away, like Zach Greinke, and I think there's a chance they finish last in their division if San Francisco keeps their team together. Cincinnati's at 77. I think Vegas got this right on the money. I'm going to say a slim under because they don't have a real ace on that staff. Alex Wood's good. He'll help that rotation. I think Matt Kemp and Yasiel Puig are solid additions to that team, and both of those guys will have good years. But I still don't trust their pitching. Maybe Raciel Iglesias is traded at some point in the season if they underachieve. So I'm going to say slim under for the Reds. Toronto, 76.5. I'm going to say under. I think there's a chance they trade Marcus Stroman. Yes, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is one of the more hyped prospects I've ever seen in the game, just because he's Vlad Guerrero's son. But still, this team isn't good, so give me under 76.5, and plus the Yankees and the Red Sox are in that division as well. And Tampa Bay. Seattle, 74.5. I'm going to say a slim over here, believe it or not, because this team isn't a complete dumpster fire, per se. Yeah, the rotation's bad after they traded away James Paxton, and their bullpen's not going to be good after the trading of Edwin Diaz. They still have okay guys in their lineup. Kyle Seager's still there. Mitch Haniger's still there. I think both of those guys will have solid years. I think this is a slim over, but if Kyle Seager or Mitch Haniger is traded before the year, then I immediately would change my mind. But right now, those two guys are on that roster, and Jay Bruce is on that team too. So give me over 74.5. Chicago White Sox, 74.5. Easy over. I think Manny Machado signs there, and I think that Eloy Jimenez comes up and makes an immediate impact. This number should be at 77, in my opinion. I think this is the second best team in the AL Central, assuming they sign Machado. San Francisco Giants, 73. I'm going to say under. I think Madison Bumgarner's traded during the season, and I think other guys will be moved. There's talks about them trading Joe Panik, but if they trade Joe Panik, that means they would probably get in the mix for DJ LeMahieu, like Ken Rosenthal and Jeff Passan are reporting right now. But I don't think they sign DJ LeMahieu. I think he goes somewhere like Philly, assuming Philly loses out on Machado and Harper. And that's why another reason why I have Philly over, because I think they're going to sign somebody. But San Francisco, I'm going to say under. Texas, 70.5. I'm going to say under, but a slim under. I think this is a 70 and 92 team. Their big addition was Lance Lynn in their rotation, but he's no ace. He is at best a number 5 contender starter, or a contender's number 5 starter. And they have good offense players like Joey Gallo and Nomar Mazara, but they still have no pitching. Their bullpen is probably the worst in the game. Kansas City, 69, I'm going to say under. I think this is the worst team in the AL Central. Yeah, they have some good prospects coming up through the system and whatnot, but they're years away. Detroit, 67. I'm going to say slim over here, believe it or not. Michael Fulmer's still on the team. Nick Castellanos is still on the team as far as I'm concerned. I think this is a 69-win team rather than a 67-win team. I think that Vegas got these over-unders wrong with the Royals and the Tigers. Miami, 65.5. I'm going to say under. I think JT Realmuto's traded. I think that some of their young guys aren't close to being great, impactful players yet. I'm not sold that Brian Anderson's going to have the same year he did last year. I'm not sure if he's even that good of a player. To me, he's more like a role player type of guy. Although I hinted toward over yesterday when I went through these, but I talked myself into under. And another reason is that the Mets, the Phillies, the Nationals, and the Braves all could potentially be 80-plus win teams. Baltimore Orioles at 59. To me, that's low. I'm going to say a slim over. I'm going to say this is a 63-win team, maybe a 62-win team, rather than 59. I still think that 59 is an egregiously low number. I think that some of their prospects can help out. I think that Chris Davis could potentially hit 20 home runs, even though he had a bad year last year. I just think the new manager is trying to establish a culture and of winning and whatnot, but they're still a bad team, don't get me wrong, and perhaps the worst team in the game. But 59 is an egregiously low number, so give me an over on the Baltimore Orioles. Best bet of the day is brought to you by DraftKings. All college hoops, plus 323 to win 567. FIU, Indiana, Purdue, Charleston, Furman, Longwood, Fort Wayne, Radford, Mercer, Belmont, South Dakota State, Southern Miss, and Jacksonville State. Moneyline parlay. The Milwaukee Brewers have signed Yasmani Grandal last night to a 1-year, $18 million contract. They might actually be $18.25 million. Smart signing for Milwaukee. He upgrades that position offensively, but I'm not sure about defensively. He had a bad defensive postseason, but he'll certainly improve their lineup. and another reason why I took them over 83.5 wins. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping NBA, NHL, and college basketball. For today, looking ahead to tomorrow's slate in each of those three sports. And I'll do my NBA power rankings and discuss anything else that happens in the world of sports. So hope you guys have a great day, everybody.